Welcome, class, to the Week 5 presentation for ME105 Medical Terminology. This week is a little bit different. Week 5 is weighted a little heavier because instead of a normal quiz like you would normally have, you actually have a midterm exam this week. We will talk about that in more detail at the end of the presentation. However, I do want you to know for Week 5, when you are preparing, not only do you have to prepare by reading this week's chapter, but you also have to prepare by reminding yourself of all the other content we learned from weeks 1 through 4. Because the midterm does include content from week 1 all the way through week 5. So this new information will be on your midterm as well. So the new information we're focusing on this week is chapter 15, the endocrine system. So in addition to the structures we see here, the major organs of the endocrine system, there are also endocrine cells found in tissues all over the body. Endocrine cells and organs secrete hormones. They generally secrete the hormones into the bloodstream. Hormones affect the target cells that have receptors for them. So the hypothalamus is where we're going to start. Produces 8 hormones. 6 of them are local hormones that regulate the production of hormones by the anterior pituitary gland. 2 of them, oxytocin and antidiuretic hormone, also referred to as ADH, are transported to the posterior pituitary where they are stored until they are needed elsewhere in the body. Next, we're going to focus on that pituitary. It tends to be the most complex gland we have. So the pituitary gland has 2 components, a large anterior lobe, and you'll find that it has a lot of hormones associated with it, and a smaller posterior lobe. Let's start and just dive right into that large anterior lobe. Follicle stimulating hormone stimulates the ovaries to develop ova and stimulates the testes to produce spermatozoa. Luteinizing hormone stimulates ovulation in females and stimulates the testes to produce testosterone. Thyroid stimulating hormone stimulates the thyroid gland to produce thyroxine. Adrenocorticotropic hormone, often abbreviated, and you can see why, ACTH, stimulates the adrenal glands to produce corticosteroids. Prolactin stimulates the mammary glands to produce milk. Growth hormone stimulates cells to increase in number as well as size. That is our anterior lobe, my folks. Okay, next the posterior lobe hormones. Oxytocin stimulates uterine contractions and lactation. Antidiuretic hormone stimulates, it regulates the urine production by the kidneys. Whew. You can see why they call the pituitary gland the master gland, because it controls a lot of things. Next is the pineal gland. It secretes serotonin by day and converts it to melatonin at night. Serotonin is a neurotransmitter in both the central and peripheral nervous systems. Melatonin is involved in maintaining our circadian rhythms, which is that sleep-wake cycle. The pineal gland reaches its maximum size in childhood and may regulate the timing of puberty as well. All right, the thyroid, parathyroid, and thymus are all pictured on here. The thyroid gland lies just beneath the skin of the neck below the thyroid cartilage, which is also known as our Adam's apple. It is about 2 inches across and it's shaped like a bow. The cells in the gland secrete 2 thyroid hormones known as T3 and T4. The thyroid also produces the hormone calcitonin, which helps promote calcium and it helps deposit calcium and also helps with bone formation. The parathyroid glands are located on the posterior surface of the thyroid, and they are about rice-sized, and that's important to know. The parathyroid glands secrete parathyroid hormone, and that raises blood calcium levels by stimulating bone reabsorption. The thymus secretes the hormone thymosin. There's one exam I want you to be aware of known as a thyroid scan. It is considered a nuclear medicine study. So it's a test in which radioactive substance is administered and then an image of a special distribution of that radiation is taken. And here we're seeing the image of the thyroid gland, and you can kind of see that bow-shaped appearance. Next is our pancreas. So our pancreas is located in the abdominal cavity near the duodenum. Most of the pancreas is an exocrine gland that secretes digestive juices through a duct. Scattered throughout the pancreas are clusters of endocrine cells grouped around blood vessels. The endocrine cells secrete glucagon, insulin, and somatostatin. Glucagon raises blood glucose, and insulin lowers it. In a nutshell, the endocrine function of the pancreas is production of insulin. Cells need glucose to carry out cellular activities, and insulin allows glucose to enter the cell, so it is quite important. The adrenal glands sit on top of our kidneys like little caps. The adrenal glands can be thought of as two glands, the outer portion, the adrenal cortex, and the inner portion, the adrenal medulla. The adrenal cortex produces and secretes corticosteroids, which are glucocorticoids, mineralocorticoids, and sex steroids. The adrenal medulla produces our fight or flight response by our body. One thing I want you to make sure to associate here is cortisone. Cortisone is a hormone that is made by the adrenal glands, and it's important in the regulation of body metabolism. We do have several disorders to look over, so let's look at that next. Diabetes insipidus. This is a disorder associated with a deficiency of antidiuretic hormone or the ability of the kidneys to respond to antidiuretic hormone. That's diabetes insipidus. Myxedema. This is a condition that results from hypofunction, so below function, of the thyroid gland, and is characterized by dry, waxy swelling of the skin. Now, the next two terms I want you to look at really closely because your quiz does focus on these two, and they are different. Hypoparathyroidism and hypothyroidism. So if you are faced with a question, you really have to look at the word and see which word you have before you can answer it. Hypoparathyroidism is decreased activity of the parathyroid glands. Hypothyroidism is decreased activity of the thyroid gland, so be very careful when you're reading. Let's talk about that exam next. So you have a midterm exam this week, and I know that can be stressful. Do make sure you prepare accordingly. It has 50 questions on it, which means you're going to have more questions than you've had on a quiz previously. It will cover information all the way from week 1 through the information we just covered today. So it covers week 1 through week 5. It has a heavy point total, 150 points. It can make a huge impact on your grade, and it can make a positive impact if you do really well, or it can make a negative impact if you're not as prepared as you need to be. So please make sure you plan accordingly before you attempt that midterm exam. At this point, it is your turn. If you have any questions, concerns, or need assistance, definitely reach out to me so that I may help you. As always, our information is from our textbook. Definitely use that as a resource for you throughout the whole entire class for your assignments, your quiz, as well as your discussion. Thank you so much for your time today. Please make sure to prepare accordingly for your midterm exam this week. Have a great week.